Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Well, I want to show you a satellite image from August 24th, 1992. This past weekend, I was thinking a lot about the events that we've had at the end of August in terms of hurricane activity. Remember, we're only 2.5 weeks away from the peak in season. What was unique about this particular August day was Hurricane Andrew. This was the first named tropical system of the year, had achieved Category 5 strength, and was moving here across the southern tip of Florida at 165 mile-an-hour winds. It crossed the southern tip of Florida in 4 hours, and by the time today, historically showed up in 1992, Hurricane Andrew was already over parts of New Orleans. I was 12 years old watching images like this, and maybe this is one of the reasons why I study what I study. Looking back in history, take a look at this. This is what I showed you in a forecast video this same time period back in August of 2017 when we kind of released that very fateful forecast for this particular section of Texas, right in and around Houston, where we were projecting at least 30 inches of rainfall. Well, 57 inches of rainfall fell in what is now the second most costly U.S. natural disaster in history, as Hurricane Harvey came through producing $130 billion in damage, doing exactly what we do not want hurricanes to do, which is to slow down and to sit and spin over an area. Well, currently, what are we watching in terms of tropical activity? There's really 4 areas to be looking out for. We have some tropical thunderstorm activity south of Louisiana, causing some flooding problems there. We are watching more active tropical convection coming off of the west coast of Africa. There's a system sitting just off, although quite disorganized, just off the southeast coast that is forecast to kind of parallel the U.S. coast on its way toward Nova Scotia, maybe Newfoundland, and there even is some model suggestions that it may come back around and hit parts of New Brunswick. But the bigger story is going to be what is going on with Dorian in the coming days. So Tropical Storm Dorian currently sitting there just to the east of the Lesser Antilles. You can see here on satellite where Dorian is going. Let's focus in on our 2 major areas. First of all, this particular system, quite disorganized, although some of the thunderstorms in there are quite powerful. We're going to again watch this to parallel the U.S. coast on its way up to the Canadian Maritimes. But right in through here, over the next 48 hours, we need to see how much dry air Dorian continues to ingest in its low levels, because it will be cutting across the Lesser Antilles on its way toward what looks to be the island of Hispaniola. That's where it seems to be going right now. Now, this will be quite a disruptive track for Dorian. Even though out ahead of it, wind shear is low, once it gets over the island of Hispaniola, there are some big mountains there, and it could potentially slow down and really impact the strength of Dorian. What do we see from our model forecast? Well, this is the current path as put together by the 51-member European Ensemble. And what we do notice here is that path does give us a higher probability of Dorian impacting the United States, whereas the first system, very low probability of doing that. Looking out here toward the end of this week, that's the map that's over here on the right, toward the end of this week, we just kind of outline here with the European model what the probability is of having at least tropical storm force winds out of Dorian. Now remember, Dorian again dealing with some drier air now, some higher wind shear later, and having to go over the island of Hispaniola, but the water temperatures in and around Florida are quite warm this time of year, so we could see some rapid development if the remnants of this particular system do get into that area and have the chance to reorganize and become much more strong. What is the National Hurricane Center picking up on? Well, you can see here in their uncertainty cone as they forecast forward, the center of that track goes right over the island of Hispaniola and takes the system from a hurricane down to a tropical storm and eventually into a tropical depression. But it is beyond this that we're going to have to watch carefully to see what Dorian does. So I just want to make you aware of it. We're going to be watching this all week long to see where we end up by the end of this week with this system potentially making an impact in southeastern parts of the United States. Well, over the weekend, what did we notice? There were several regions across the country picking up some very heavy rainfall. Look down here along the Gulf Coast, Mississippi, Alabama, parts of Tennessee, Kentucky coming back into parts of Arkansas and Oklahoma, and very heavy rainfall in through parts of Kansas. Severe weather, a lot of big hail stretch right in through here in parts of Wyoming, southwestern South Dakota, and then also parts of Nebraska. So very active weekend in terms of rainfall across much of the United States as we saw that main frontal boundary draping through this area, and the tropical thunderstorms erupting here off of the south central coast of the United States. Well, where are we going? Well, it all has to do with the fact we finally unblocked the flow in the Pacific Ocean. We're looking here at the jet stream level winds. And remember, we had that high over low over high pattern sitting there in the Gulf of Alaska. Well, it is broken down. The jet stream is much faster. There's a deeper trough here. And today, over the next 24 hours, we're going to be watching for rapid deepening of a low pressure system in Manitoba and parts of Ontario. And its front will drape south, meeting up with plenty of Gulf moisture, and we're going to target this area for the potential for severe storms today. Meanwhile, heat to the south builds under this ridge out west. We're going to take a look at those temperatures very soon as well. Our early morning lightning. These are the storms we're watching early this morning, right in and around parts of South Dakota and Nebraska. Those are the initial storms that will eventually be moving here toward Missouri, toward parts of Iowa, Illinois, Arkansas, southeastern Kansas, and parts of Oklahoma as well. So we're going to keep a close eye on that particular corridor as this low really invigorates later on in the day today. Our all hazards map, excessive heat watches and warnings down here, parts of Texas and Oklahoma, flooding here. We have our severe thunderstorm watches still early in the morning here in parts of Nebraska, but these are all excessive heat watches, and this is a red flag warning. So let's take a look at what's happening today. Starting first with the Storm Prediction Center. As that low develops in through this area, the main frontal boundary, teaming up with the outflow from some of the thunderstorms earlier today in parts of Nebraska and South Dakota, gives us an enhanced risk from in and around St. Louis through the midsection of Missouri, but then back over to eastern Kansas and Oklahoma. Now, if there's a spot in the United States that has been beat on over the last month, it is right in through here in terms of very, very heavy rainfall. So we're looking out for more of that again today. As we progress into the day on Tuesday and our low really deepens in this area, the main frontal boundary will be stretched just like this, and we're going to have to watch the parts of Texas and Oklahoma for some more severe weather, but many in parts of Oklahoma and Texas will be welcoming some of the rain from this particular system. Taking you next to our high-resolution rapid refresh model. This is the evolution of this system, getting you all the way out into early Wednesday morning. If I just take you back and show you some of the main features. This is now 7 o'clock this morning. You can see the prefrontal rain bands here stretching all the way down from Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama through the Mid-South to Tennessee, Kentucky, into the Ohio River Valley, and then right here, the storms early this morning that moved through Illinois, getting into northern Illinois and Wisconsin. But the main show is back here, those storms that were over parts of Nebraska. Watch them evolve throughout the day. So getting into eastern Nebraska, moving into Iowa, and then into Missouri by this afternoon. So I got you out to 5 o'clock this evening. Prefrontal rain out here, see it? Stretching through parts of Michigan eventually, and then right in through here, the main frontal boundary sits. And we're going to be watching this evening for potentially some damaging winds with the squall lines that move from Oklahoma through parts of Kansas, Missouri, and potentially into parts of western Illinois. Now, getting you into the overnight hours on Tuesday into early Wednesday morning, our main frontal boundary begins to push to the east, see it here, such that by early Tuesday morning, about the time the Farm Progress Show starts over in Decatur, we should have that front past the Farm Progress Show. While it will be cooler and windy, the main severe weather threat, the main thunderstorm threat, will be to the south and to the east of that area. So let's get us out to Tuesday afternoon and evening. Here's the main frontal boundary, and watch the storms pop up again in the overnight hours on Tuesday night here in parts of Texas. See them showing up right there. There they go. And parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin could get some wraparound showers out of this. Flipping over to our European model, let's play this one out as well. We can see that through the next 10 days, got a couple of big low pressure systems that move through the north central part of the United States. Monday afternoon, getting into Monday evening, this is where our big show begins to take off right in through here. You can see how deep this low is up here on the border of Manitoba and Ontario. So this will be the main corridor of our severe weather, particularly tucked down here into parts of Missouri, getting into parts of Kansas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. Now, as we talked about, this moves through the eastern Cornbelt as we get into the early morning hours on Tuesday, and some very windy conditions on the backside, but clearing things out. And you can see as I press forward on this, that the main frontal boundary by the time we get into Wednesday afternoon is now sitting here, Higher pressure dominates the midsection of the country, and the main frontal boundary stretched all the way from the northeast through Texas. See it right in there. That's where we're going to watch for storms later on in the week. High pressure then really takes over through the end of the week. I've got you now to Thursday night, Friday morning, and we do need to be watching a couple things by the time we get toward the end of our week. First, on Friday evening, getting into Saturday morning, you can see the European models picking up on this feature just south of this high pressure area, trying to form here in the Central Plains. Secondly, coming into the Pacific Northwest at the end of this week and weekend, there's a deep upper level low that could be impacting Oregon and Washington with some more heavy rainfall. And finally, this is where by the time we get to the end of our week, the operational European model has put Dorian right here over the Bahamas, potentially moving toward Florida. So we're going to keep a close eye on all of those features throughout this week. Putting it all together, taking you to the this time next Monday, we can see that our heaviest rainfall will be wrapped around that big low pressure center that's coming right in through here. You can even see its influence here where we got these kind of bands of rainfall. We do still need to watch the tropical thunderstorms just off the southern coast here of the United States. You can see system number 1 and Dorian in the operational model coming right through Florida. Now, again, we don't have a lot of confidence in one model run's position of where Dorian is going, but it's something to be on the lookout for. Finally, don't forget toward the end of the week, be watching the west coast of the United States, specifically Oregon and Washington, for our next system moving in through there. Now, those folks in Texas I mentioned a moment ago would desperately need this rainfall. There are pockets in Texas that have gone 45 days and more without rainfall. Meanwhile, just to the north of that, in eastern Oklahoma, eastern Kansas, western Missouri, this particular region over the last 30 days has been exceptionally wet. You can see that that stretches right here up through the high plains. So I just want to offer some perspective here by looking at the last 30 days in terms of percent of normal rainfall on what we're getting over the next 10 days, who it will be hitting with a heavier rainfall. Now, in the upper levels of the atmosphere, take a look at this. We have a well-defined trough sitting right over the North Pole, and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of lobes of low pressure that extend from it. Now, why I'm showing you this is typically the more of these lows that we have orbiting this deeper trough sitting in this area, the better the chance that the pattern stays unblocked. The one that I'm most concerned about is this one right over here off the Aleutian Islands, because through the next 5 days, as the pattern sets up like this and the ridge builds west and the trough digs in east, if we can keep this trough in place, it's going to help keep the pattern established just like this across North America. And we can see that by day 10, it is still well defined there, and that is why we see more troughing over this section of the U.S. with more ridging along the west coast of North America. Now I'm going to show you the resulting temperature pattern from this in a few moments, but first I want to take you all the way out to September 10th. Overall, when I look out this far, I do still see a pretty well-defined trough feature sitting here with heights rising on each side of North America, which means keeping some cooler weather in place in this area seems to be the name of the game. And I'm going to show you that forecast in a few moments, but I first want you to take a look at the heat we've got coming this week. In Texas today, not only triple-digit heat, but between 105 and 110 degrees here. And then watch as I animate this for the heat to spread up the west coast as that ridge becomes developed. And look at the cooler air that's going to be sliding through the north central plains. You ready for this? This is now Monday's high temperatures. Let's take you out to Tuesday. By Tuesday, heat spreads through the Central Valley of California, right up the I-5 corridor here with 90s, maybe some lower 100s. Meanwhile, Texas, still triple-digit heat. North Central Plains, maybe the potential for high temperatures to stay in the 60s in this area. So we don't want that. We need much warmer conditions, but that's what we've got through August 27th, Tuesday. Wednesday, the cooler air continues to spread through parts of the North Central Plains, getting to the Great Lakes states, while the heat builds south and west. Look at those temperatures out west. This is now getting into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Another reinforcing shot at some cooler air coming through the midsection of the country while the southern states stay warm and the west stays warm. Broader picture on these temperatures, this is the European ensemble next 5 days. You can see right there where the temperature split happens across North America. All right. Days 5 through 10, it becomes even more north-south. very, very consistent picture over the weekend with the model runs that I've seen here. And taking you out to days 11 through 15, we continue to see that same pattern established both in the European model on the left and the GFS on the right. Now, how do you interpret these maps? Well, what this tells me, look up here at my main point, I have very little confidence in forecasting any time period east of the Rocky Mountains where we might see several days with above average temperatures. That's the way to look at this. And we need the heat to come back into the Cornbelt to help the late planted crop finish. That is one thing we desperately need. And at least through September 10th, we are not getting it. Now, I'm getting a lot of questions about the risk of an early frost. And I just want to make one thing very, very clear. The ingredients we need to get an early frost, I'm talking about a September frost through a big section of the middle part of the United States. We got to have something like this happen, a very, very highly amplified flow. Now, what I mean is we need to get the jet stream to go way up here into Alaska and then break right here over central Canada and dig into a highly amplified trough that looks something like this. This is what creates big areas of higher atmospheric pressure that sit right here. Clear skies, calm nights, allows the temperatures to bottom out. So if I start forecasting something like that showing up in the models, then we need to start worrying about frost. Right now, no, please, we gotta be careful with this. What I do want to tell you is that there is right now, over the last month, cooler air that has been established in this corridor. And that area I just kind of shaded in there just means that if we've got colder than average temperatures already in place, that is cold air that could be used to help bring down some cooler air into this north central part of the United States and the Canadian prairies. It's just there, but it takes the pattern to unlock that and bring it south. That's what I want you to understand. And over the next several days, I'm not forecasting a frost. We're just simply looking at cooler than average temperatures. Elsewhere around the world, as we finish up this video, the heat that we are seeing, the above average temperatures in much of Central and Northern Europe, this will be progressing to the east with time. So we're going to be seeing cooling weather moving in as we get toward the end of this week. An active storm track through the British Isles just north of the Scandinavian area and also down here in the Iberian Peninsula moving across the Mediterranean. Meanwhile, over here around the Black Sea, the next 15 days actually showing up with a drier bias in the European model. Also, taking you over to parts of Asia, we're watching 3 separate tropical cyclones that could be developing in the coming days here. This is a 10-day precip map, but what I'm more focused on is the fact that right here south of Beijing, we are continuing to see another 10 days forecast dry for that area. Meanwhile, north of the Korean Peninsula, looking at wetter than average conditions here. So important look here for what's going on over in Asia. And to finish this up, this is a satellite image here where we're using data from MODIS to tell us where we have active fires across South America. So we can see around Rondônia and also through Mato Grosso, the northern edge here of those 2 states which cut into the Brazilian rainforest, quite a lot of active fires. But you can see they stretch all the way down here through Mato Grosso do Sul, getting into, even getting down there into parts of Paraná and even farther south than that. So each red dot here representing where an active fire is, and you can see the smoke and the haze. Since we will start talking a whole lot more about South America, at least want to show you this. One of my favorite websites to take a look at soil moisture here. Had a little bit of trouble loading this morning. Looks like they were going through some redevelopment of this page, but you can still see the main idea. This is soil moisture storage. We see a lot in the 1 to 5% range right in through this corridor. And again, that's kind of the heart of Brazil's growing area. But I'll preface it by just telling you this. This is very normal for this time of year. It's normally very, very dry. They're just coming off the end of their dry season. It will be us forecasting the resurgence of the Brazilian monsoon, which will be critical to understanding how and when they're going to get planted down in South America with their next growing season. So we'll keep you up to date with all of it. I hope to see you all at the Farm Progress Show this week. I'll be at the Nutrien Ag Solutions tent. Come by and see me. If you've got some weather questions, I'd love to talk to you. Just love to meet you, and hopefully we'll see you sometime there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. But with that, we'll go and wrap this forecast video up right here. Thank you for your attention. Talk to you again soon. Thank you.